Czech Republic. Czech Republic.
Very
Czech
good.
Republic.
Very good. I think we're all here. We're present and
We have a
accounted
quorum.
for. What's going on, Danny McMahon?
Not much, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, I just noticed that we.
Oh my God. Wait a second. I need a picture. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. Here we go. Hold on. 1, 2. Oh, let me get myself in it. There we go. Wow, what a bunch of nerds.
That's just free bicycle swag.
You know, I got mine when I got my USAC license.
Oh, did they send that to you in the mail?
I don't remember if they, because they send you, at least they did. I don't think they send you a card now? I can't remember, but I have the app and it has everything on that. But I can't remember if the t-shirt was free or I had to pay like $20, which I'm happy to do because it supports USA Cycling. But
sure.
Yeah, we're wearing the same USA Cycling shirt, but like a bunch of nerds.
That is very, that's very nerdy, very bike shoppy of us right now. You know, mine certainly was a free shirt. This was from at the CABDA show, the Chicago Area Bicycle Dealers Association show back in February.
Which I just saw an ad for, or some news mention that they're starting up again or something. They're looking for.
The open registration. The registration for the bicycle shops is opened, so I can register now. I can.
Are you going again?
Yeah, usually if I'm in town, I will go.
Should I go?
Sure.
Would it be fun for me or no?
I bet you would enjoy spending a day there, just walking around and looking at all the stuff. I can get you a badge if you want to head down. Oh, you know what? If you come down and I'm there, we can walk around with microphones and record people. How about that? We did that last year. Remember, I was with my former mechanic, Tom, and we just walked around and harassed people who were sticking mics in their faces and stuff.
You did some roving reportage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was fun. Nobody asked us for credentials or anything. I didn't ask for.
They're probably like happy as hell someone's promoting their thing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think that I'd have problems getting a badge if I needed one or something. But some sort of maybe I do ask for press credentials. Oh, let's think about this.
I know it's always like on a weekdays, so it's usually tricky for me, but we'll just see when it comes up. I'd love to maybe pop in for like a day.
It's always during the week. So, I mean, it's like, it usually starts like maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday and then runs through Thursday, something like that. You really don't need much more. They tend to be,
you're like, that's plenty.
Yeah. I mean, it's a smaller show, so that's a good thing. They're actually ideal for the bicycle dealers. So it's come for us in Chicago. It comes at the ideal time of the year, which is like February, and it's when we need to start ordering things. It's like that's when the season right around the corner. A month away, month and a half away, and it's about when we want to start thinking about actually buying stuff for the season.
Yeah.
So it's not bad. It's not bad.
Nice, man.
Yeah, the bicycle business has kind of adopted that, and as several other industries, these smaller regional shows versus these giant industry shows that used to take place in Vegas. These big behemoth week-long, travel shows. So these regional shows have kind of become the preferred way of doing it because you actually get business done there.
Yeah, Interbike was. I regret never having gone. I know you've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I never went to. It was Interbike, right?
Yeah,
the one in Vegas. Yeah, and then I went to but I did go to the mega crazy one, and it's in this like little town. I want to say Friedrichshafen or something like that. Eurobike, duh.
Eurobike, yeah.
But I had an interesting time going. I'm glad I went, but it was one of those things where. Like, I don't know if I really need to go to that again, but that was after. I probably would go back someday. But the only point I would just make is I can't explain like how big it was. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was like 5 McCormick places.
Yep.
Like it was insanity. Like I went through one part and it took like hours and I was going fast. Like I was moving through it. I just wanted to get a lay of the land. I was doing some coverage for bicycling when I worked for them at the time. But point being, like I spent most of that day just going through one section. I didn't even realize that there were like 4 other sections like that. So
Yeah, how many
it was
how many
insane.
generic carbon wheels did you see at that show?
That was the thing. I mean, it was just it quickly became like there's really cool stuff there, and I'm sure great deals are done there. And there's like a lot of bike celebs and
Mm-hmm.
non-bike celebs. Like they have like it's really, you know, it's a very like German thing. Like they have like a courtyard in the middle, and there's like beer drinking, and there's like sausage eating, and there's like dudes jumping BMX bikes and all that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, one thing I realized very quickly was like, oh wow, there's a lot of chaff, you know.
Yep.
There's a lot of just like 18, you know, carbon wheel companies
Mm-hmm.
like in a row. And the wheels kind of look the same. And, you know, and they're kind of like Zip knockoffs and Head and whatever knockoffs, all those. Anyway, so it was a very interesting experience, but I was also like, wow, that it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, since the internet came along, you know, those shows started taking on less importance, you know, because you know, things were being debuted almost instantly.
Yep.
You know, manufacturers had a direct line to bike shops and the consumer, really, you know, so they didn't really, you know, they didn't need a show to debut that stuff. They were, you know, showing that stuff themselves, you know, and then the big thing, the big nail in the coffin for those big shows was when Trek and Specialized decided to pull out and just do their own shows for their own dealers.
I mean, I for one, just I'm sure others can relate, but I for one got invited to, you know, a hand when I was doing like the actual kind of cycling journalism, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got invited and flown out to Specialized a few times, and I've been to Trek a few times, which is obviously in my backyard here in the Midwest. But yeah, like they're so big and their launches are so anticipated that they have no problem bringing. I mean, Trek was flying in people from Japan, these Japanese journalists, which I know is a big market for them. But it was amazing. Like they had people from all over Europe, and they would just fly them in, set them up, give them the whole like junket, and give them bikes, and you know, just every kit, like the meals. They drive them everywhere around, and
Wow.
I just like cruise up in my like Honda Civic for like the afternoon. I got like a sandwich and a coffee, and I'm like, I'm good. But like, you know, I was kind of like I'd been doing a little bit of that other part, let's say previously. So, you know, I was like, okay, once you've done it for a while, you go, yeah, I've had enough. But it was amazing how much money they poured into that. But you're right, they didn't have to go to those shows. Yeah. And I always remember seeing like, or like a lot of there would be some big tier companies like Giant and stuff, but like you'd see a ton of second tier and then third tier and then fourth tier. And like, you know, I never heard of like 99% of these companies. I'm like, I've never heard of your wheels. And everyone just wants to give you stuff. Come talk to us. But the more interesting part, Joe, as you know, is the not so dirty secret of all those shows is it's such a party for a lot of people, for especially media people.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about like when you were in the bike shop, like a cycle smithy, but it's really like a huge party because like people walk around, they schlep around the floor, they may do some stuff. I'm sure there's real business happening, but when I went, like there were certain executives from SRAM who took us out, and wow, we had some big nights, which I can't believe I even survived.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are big parties, man. I think those days are over now, but
yeah, they are. You know, I mean, I don't think you can do like, you know, some of those parties were
illegal.
Great. Oh, yeah, I mean, you know what? They would be frowned upon these days.
I'm kidding about illegal, actually, but like maybe you had some of that, but I didn't see that. It was just wild, though. I was like, oh my god.
No, I mean, you know, especially like in the Vegas days, there was a distributor out of Nevada that was just infamous, like that, getting an invitation to that to that party was like a golden ticket.
Nice.
Yeah, you needed to know someone. It was a party that that not
Like,
everybody
did
was invited
Cipollini
to.
show up with his
Yeah,
entourage?
that was the kind of party that Cipollini would show up, and there would be well, back in the day, there would be girls there, and
Yes,
all that kind of stuff, all that kind
of
of stuff.
course.
Yes, and so yeah, that was like that was a notorious party in
Yeah.
in Vegas. Yeah, and getting I remember when I got my first invitation to that one. That was like, yes, I'm in the
I
special
was gonna
club.
say it's like you made it. Yeah.
Yeah,
They were super fun, but yeah, it was more of just like a cultural experience almost. Like
I do kind of miss that when you talk about your brand partners. They did feel a little bit more like partners back in the day.
Mhm.
Like, these days it doesn't. Certainly there's some shops that are really tied to the brands, out of business need,
Sure.
business necessities. But I don't feel that anymore. Back in the day, um, the owner of Specialized would come into the bike shop. I mean, he would come through every year or two.
Mike Sinyard.
Yeah, Mike Sinyard would show up and say hello and talk to the staff and
Are you selling any rubies?
yeah, hang out for a half a day. Hang out for a morning or something. Yeah.
How do you like desserts?
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
any slime? Well, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was
No.
going to say, like, I do remember it being, again, I only went to a handful, but,
Mhm.
I remember it being almost like a pilgrimage, like it was that annual meetup. And it was
Yeah.
kind of like, you'd walk in, you see all the old faces, like you haven't seen for like pretty much a year. Right.
Mhm.
And the part that I loved was Cross Vegas, the cyclocross race they would have
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And I think it was a World Cup for a little bit, but if it wasn't, it was a big race and they flew in all the Euros. I remember like Sven Nys racing that and
it was
Art and all the top like it was a huge thing. Then they had the media race and it was all the media dudes. And it was like a whole thing of racing. Lance Armstrong raced there one time.
I was at that was the first Cross Vegas. That's when Lance had, that was on his return. He had gone back to, I think
Crazy.
That's when he'd gotten back to racing and he decided to do Cross Vegas. And,
That was it was a big, like weird thing, but like very Vegas, right? Like the desert racing at night. Like it felt like they have some of these races, of course, in Belgium. I'm sure you've seen them, but most of them are, during the day, but especially during that crazy Christmas week. But they have one or two that are at night.
Yeah.
And it's a very different atmosphere and people are just hammered.
Oh,
drunk, and they're just like going nuts. It's like a rock concert. You have these like skinny guys racing bikes around.
It was I got to say that was a really, really cool night. And I went out there, I don't know, that must have been 2007 or 8 or I don't know, whatever year that was that Lance that year that Lance was out there. I mean, maybe it was earlier than that. And there was a lot of buzz because he was out at that, because he was coming into town to do that, because he was in town to do that race. And
2008.
Yeah. And we traveled big from Cycle Smithy that year. And I convinced the whole crew to come out, with me, and everybody was psyched.
There have been a few. I posted the link there. I love the headline, by the way, of this like local paper, Las Vegas Sun. It said Lance Armstrong competes at Cross Vegas, comma, loses to Oregon cyclists. But yeah, I do vaguely remember I remember watching the stream. So I know Lance finished somewhere down, but I mean, yeah, it was kind of bizarre, just a very Americana thing. But but then you had all these like Euros there.
Yeah.
And it's like cyclocross, but it was like on grass.
It was in a park. It was like
and hot, and
it was like a neighborhood park that they did it at.
Yeah, everything. All the obstacles were obviously man-made, so they had like the flyovers, and I kind of loved it for its like it just seems like very Vegas kind of thing, and I regret not going. I'm jealous that you were there, but very cool. It was very cool.
Yeah, that was a show where we encountered an angry Eddie Merckx. Because we all had some sort of bootleg Eddie Merckx T-shirt that we were selling at the bike shop. It was like one of these messenger bag companies that was printing Eddie Merckx T-shirts. You know,
Timbuktu.
No, it was somebody out of maybe Fabric Horse, or it was some little outfit out of the East Coast, and they were printing these really cool Eddie Merckx T-shirts, which we all had, and we ran into Eddie Merckx at the show. It was like, he was at the Eddie Merckx booth, when he had when he was still promoting his bicycles.
That's right.
And I remember, one of the kids wanted to get his shirt signed, and Eddie's already looking at this shirt like, I'm not making any money off these shirts. and he to his credit, he's like, the kid that I was with handed him a pen, and he was kind of frustrated at that. He looked at the pen and he's like, ugh. And he hands the pen back, and then he walks around back, and he comes back and he's got a Sharpie. So like, very pro of him, right? So
right.
He's already been made to go get a Sharpie. He comes back, he's gonna sign the shirt, and the guy's kind of like sticking his stomach, like just sticking
like
himself
sign
out.
it, sign
like,
it,
sign it. And Eddie Merckx looks at him, and he says, "Stretch it." He's like, "Stretch it." And the guy's like, he's like, "Stretch the shirt." And then,
that's a pretty good Eddie Merckx, actually.
Yeah. And there was it's also a show where a sad Johann Museo was there.
Oh,
and he had a brand of bike, Johann, like Museo bicycles, and it was
right.
Yeah, and it was made out of. It wasn't made out of carbon fiber. It was made out of something weird, like, I don't know. Now, if it was a corn product, it was some sort of. It wasn't corn. It was something else. It was
something weird.
It was
like
some
a composite or something.
Yeah, it was some innovative. It was some sort of innovative product at the time, and he had like two pieces of the material, and one was carbon fiber and one was his, and he wanted people to like tap the material so you could hear the noise, and you'd hear the carbon fiber kind of ping ping, and he tried to convince you. He was like, oh, that's what happens on the road, is you're feeling all the vibration, and then you'd hit his whatever composite his bike was made out of. And it was like flax. That's what it was made out of. It was made out of
flax preg.
Yeah, it was made out of flax.
And HM carbon and flax preg technology.
Yeah, and you would tap that, and you'd hear like a thump, like he's like, that's what's happening on the road. It is absorbing shock, very unique properties. But nobody was nobody was stopping at his booth. I was like, I was like the only one there doing his little test, and I was excited because it was I'm like, it's Johann Museo. Like, this guy is like,
yeah, he's a legend, the Lion of Flanders.
Yeah. And nobody unfortunately was having it from him. And yeah, he seemed a little bummed out, but that's
sad.
I stayed there and talked to him for 30 minutes,
Nice. Well, he seems to be doing great. I've seen him on TV, Belgian TV stuff, and you see him at the tour and stuff. He seems like he's good now. Maybe he was going through a bad patch or something.
He bounced back. He's working and doing stuff.
As far as I remember, I can't remember the last time I saw him, but it was in the past few years. Yeah, I think he was out and about doing some like commentary and at least getting some interviews and stuff. So,
that's good.
Yeah, so mating high modulus carbon and flax fibers together, Johann created a frame offering the best features of both materials. Marrying these materials together results in a combination that's greater than the sum of its parts. The fibers of flax placed at specific joints on the frame soak up shocks of the road through the frame better than carbon on its own, since the tensile steel of the carbon varies between models. Along with reinforcement with flax preg, capital F, it's trademarked, in critical areas. These frames are independently tuned for vibration, damping, and strength. Yeah, it reminds me of Sean Kelly riding those like glued together Vito spikes.
Yeah. Have a really big,
He's still,
strong dude on a flexi bike.
I know, like probably the strongest guy of this
Yeah,
era.
yeah, yeah,
Peloton, like on this like glued together.
yeah,
What could go wrong?
yeah.
So what else is going on?
Just it's really slowed down a lot at the shop. Still a little bit of repair work, but it's really died down. I can't imagine being, like I said, being one of these big bicycle shops that has a ton of stuff to sell.
Do you do a year end review like of your business? Like, do you like sit down either with a consultant or an accountant, or just do it yourself, where you kind of like look back and like how did the shop do this year? Did it do fairly well, relatively well? Like, how did it go?
I think for me it went okay. It was okay. It was okay to good. In that this year I could get bikes. I had access to a lot of the bikes that I wanted and needed. For kind of like for special orders. Which is the way that I work. I don't stock a ton of bikes, so being able to go to a supplier's catalog and pick a bike that I need and order it and get it to a customer in a week or 10 days. That's kind of the ideal situation for me. And this year, I was able to do a lot more. I was able to do that for the first time in a few years. As opposed to the last few years where I've been kind of selling whatever I could get my hands on. This year I could be a little bit more proactive and sell bikes and special order bikes and things like that. So I think having availability of product helped me a lot. And then our repair business was pretty strong again this year. So especially at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I mean, I think overall we're pretty good.
Do you if you had like a pie chart, like a colored pie chart, like how big of a slice would be I don't know, like service? How big would like sales be? Like what's kind of like just the general breakdown? Is it like half service, 3/4?
My shop definitely skews more towards the repair business, at least this year and the last couple of years. Just because bike availability has been bad, but I mean, I could see that number changing, getting skewing a little bit more towards bikes, but especially as we start selling bikes that are a little bit more, higher ticket bikes, for sure, so.
And how are you said you were doing a whole new phone system, some installs and like renovation stuff. So what's the update, Chief?
I won't have phones. I won't have like a working phone system until close to the end of the month, last week of the month. There's a porting process. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Nope.
technically you own your phone number. So the phone number that you have on your phone, if you like that number, you can, it belongs to you and you can move that to another carrier with you. I have, there's obviously, I have equity in that phone, my phone number at this point. It's been my phone number for 15 years, so I don't want to lose that. And I'm switching carriers or services this year. So they have to. My new carrier asks for. I have to sign some paperwork, and then they go to my current carrier and go and grab that number. And what is going to be my former services has to release that number, and it's going to take a couple of weeks. So, they're not. Yeah. Well, whatever. It's just technical stuff behind the scene, and it's fine. I'll make do.
So until then, like if people go to your shop website or whatever, they call that number. What happens?
Right now, they're getting a message, and it's directing them to like I have an alternate phone number right now, or if they need to reach me.
588-2300.
That's it. That's the one. And or they're directed to reach out on social media or some
Oh, I
messaging
love it.
service or
Old school, like call the bike shop, hey, and then you get this message, hey, hit us up on Instagram.
yeah, that's it.
I
That's
love
it.
it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Get us on Instagram or Facebook or, here's a phone number. You can reach us and leave a message. So yeah, I mean, it's, luckily, it's not the busy time of the year.
Yeah, of course.
And people have been taking advantage of that. So, I mean, I don't feel like we're completely, these days, most people are pretty connected in one way or the other. And,
Yeah.
if they really need to get in touch with us, they do. And this new system is going to be great because I can pretty much take bike shop phone calls anywhere I am at any time. I can text the customers. I can send them pictures of their, broken rear derailleur and request, okay to fix it. So I'm kind of excited about making this switch. So
Nice, man.
yeah, clearing out the bike shop right now. Just like starting some heavy duty pruning and cleaning at the shop. Things
like a gut cleaning, like.
Yeah, I hope at some point, I hope by the end of this month to go through every single parts cabinet, every little drawer, everything, and just clear the decks and put everything, like find a home for everything.
Do you got your label gun all fired up?
Yeah, I'm ready to do that. I think once we kind of sort through things and see what we need to put away, I will get some new organizational tools, some shells and pull out cabinets and,
Nice.
get some uniformity in there, something clean. And I've, like over the last, I don't know, over the last 15 years, really, since we've existed, I've inherited bits and pieces of various bicycle shops, or bought, parts bins and various things from different bike shops. A lot of useful, parts and bits and pieces well, usually when I've gone to these bike shops to buy something, like some sort of tool or something, inevitably they'd give me a little chest full of bits and pieces, which were appreciated, like cool things. You can't buy these things, they're just something that someone's been collecting, for little pieces that someone's been collecting for 30 years, that when the right person comes in, like you make his day by being able to give him that little piece, and, I keep them. I've been holding on to these pieces, and some of these drawers I haven't opened since they were given to me. But there's others that I go to kind of often, and I feel a little bit of an obligation to hold on to some of this stuff because, like I said, every once in a while there's somebody that comes in, and having worked at that shop that has everything, having worked at shops that we are the shop that everybody else sends people to because they might have that piece. Like I'm kind of that shop in my area right now, and
Yeah, you are.
and I enjoy, and I like that, I'm like, that's like one of those things that I see as an obligation, and I kind of want to make my name on that, being able to help someone with an odd part. But with that comes with being a really messy shop because I have a lot of like random bits and pieces. So I just got to wrangle all this stuff together and somehow organize it if I want to do it. So
if you want a consultant, Marie Kondo, if you will, let me know, because Sarah is up to the challenge. She might be. I have to ask her, but she would be perfect. You can pay her in paella. She is a whiz. I'm not kidding. She's kind of an expert at organizing.
Yeah, well,
like she could go pro if she wanted to. I'm not kidding.
I just got word that one of my aces is coming back for the holidays. Little Isa is coming back
from out west
for winter break. So I hope that she's going to be hanging out, help me on the weekends, because she also has a little bit of that. She's got that good kind of crazy where she could just sit at a table and sort for 5 hours straight. And
she does those like 5,000 piece puzzles. And
yeah. And she finds.
We should call her the professor.
She loves it, and she like just really enjoys the process. So Yeah.
Maybe you can get one of those. You could probably even get them secondhand, but
Mhm.
I'm thinking like IKEA and other. I'm sure there's a million places online, but just those like those little organizing things where it's like all these little tiny little drawers. You pull them out. They have
Yeah,
little
yeah.
plastic window covers, but you have like all your different because it's a ton of screws, right? You have a bunch of bolts,
Oh,
screws,
just all
washers,
sorts of stuff. Yeah,
like
bearings and
everything, bearings, drill bits,
brake
like
hardware.
bits and bobs and nooks and crannies and everything. So it's like I can imagine like a good size of that, and then just like label each one, and it's like, yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge. But hey, it sounds like a good winter project.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it goes hand in hand with the redesign of the store. Like just the process that we're going through right now. I can incorporate that into the actual design of the shop because I'm going to need a lot of wall space, and I got to figure out how to do all of this stuff and fit everything in this small shop. So, no, it's cool. It's cool. I'm enjoying it right now. It's nice to see this stuff happen. So.
Now, we talked last year about this a little bit. Do you still have designs on opening up and using that space next to you, or what's the deal with that? Because you were flirting with the idea of possibly opening it up. I think possibly as like a fit studio or some other thing. Any ideas on that, or is that just
No,
on the
no,
back
that
burner?
I certainly want to make that area usable for us. Like be able to lean on that space a little bit more. Maybe put a workshop in there, and and this and this fit studio. It also has to house all my back stock, and I want to keep all my repairs in there. I want to declutter and take a lot of the pressure off of what is the main shop right now, and kind of take that over to the other space. So I'm liking how empty the new shop is and how airy it is, and I want to kind of keep it that way.
Yeah, it seemed like it was a very time-consuming thing where you guys had to move a bunch of bikes around every day, and I understood you had like only so much space. But are you going to use the next door space to leverage like some of that kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like where you had like all the rental bikes in
Yeah,
and out.
yeah, yeah. I mean that's what it is. It's just like turning that into something that's just more than a storage space, like an actual a space that we can actually do some work um and just lean on a little bit more. It just has to work harder for us. It can't just be a place where we keep a lot of useless stuff. And right now that's kind of what it is. There's a lot of stuff in there that we don't need, and a lot of old bikes and things like that. Like I just
Yeah,
got I just got to get rid of projects. There's a lot of projects there, and we've been holding on to some bikes that I don't know what we've been holding onto these bikes for. I think in the back of our minds we were gonna fix them and sell them or something like that. They're
Mhm.
just some cool old bikes, but I've decided that a lot of those I'm probably just going to throw up on eBay and allow somebody else to restore the bike or do something with. There's somebody with some time. We'll focus
Yeah,
on the bike shop, and there's cool stuff. There's a lot of really cool, like really really cool old bikes, but I just don't have time for projects anymore.
yeah. I think like one is cool, like the
Mm-hmm.
Bottecchia, something fun like that, like a nice, cool,
Mm-hmm.
like really nice one. But like, I think I agree. I was just gonna say, I recently walked by a store. I can't tell you where it was, a bike shop, and I noticed the thing that just like struck me was, it was kind of a classic shop in that like big glass windows, glass pane windows, and on either side, and then like you walk through like the middle to like the door was like set back 10 feet or whatever, and so it kind of had like that old toy store, candy store kind of facade
Mm-hmm.
almost. But what I remember thinking as I was going by it was, so the store was open. Actually, I do remember the store, but I don't want to say it. The store was open, and it was like middle of the day, and it was like everything was kind of like nice looking, but it was so dark like someone hadn't really thought about what it really looks like. Like I got the impression that someone's just been running that place for so long, they kind of forgot to have some curb appeal, as they say in, in this old house. Like the two bikes, they had one bike on one side and one on the other side. Just these, like, I think one was like it wasn't a fixie. It was like, yeah, I think it was like a BMX bike. And then maybe the other was a fixie or like a hybrid or something, but they were kind of hanging nicely. It was kind of dark and both bikes were like black. So I was just kind of like going by and I was like, there's nothing colorful. Like I like a black bike. I have no problem with the black bike, but in terms of like display, first of all, I'd put some lights up there, shine a little light, put like a cool, fun, like, I don't know, candy red bike or a yellow, whatever, or it's just something, but it didn't look inviting is the point, like at all. And it had some like older stuff. I don't know what it was, like some like little helmets or whatever. They were clearly quite dated. And I know not every shop can have like the newest cool stuff, but do something with it. It didn't feel like a shop I wanted to like run into and be like, take my money.
You know what? My shop does not feel like that at the moment. Like, and it's been like probably the last 3. I mean, we really got hammered during COVID. Like there was no time or room or space to do anything during that. And then, just coming out of it, the shop was so beat up that it's like, oh man, we really need to like, like we just need to tear everything down and start over again, in a way. And so like, this is really the first chance that we've had to do that. And like the deeper I get into, the more excited I am actually about the process, because I walk in, it's cool, it's comfortable, it's the shop, but yeah, I recognize there's nothing, it's not reflective of how I feel, about the business right now. And I'm certainly a lot more excited than the bike shop looks at the moment. But I knew that, I've known for the last year and a half that, I didn't want to just throw a little, it couldn't just be a little bit of lipstick and rouge. Like I actually have to rebuild the shop a little bit in order to display things the way that I need to display them. And I knew that, it was going to take time and a little bit of money. And, it was just that it was going to be a big project once I started. And yeah, I mean, and when I say a big project, that it's going to take a lot of my time.
Right.
Money wise too. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of money, and I love being involved with the design, and I like building the displays.
But I was going to say, you're pretty DIY.
Yeah.
You can run to Home Depot or wherever you go.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. I mean, I could just go out and buy displays and stuff, but like I'm really looking forward to getting into the welding shop and building some displays and making some really custom, just creating some cool custom stuff for the shop. And
because I think the facade of your shop is actually very inviting. It's very inviting, and I love the logo, the sign. Like it's a very inviting place. But I would say from the outside curb appeal vibe, I would say I like when shops, and I know this isn't easy, so I don't mean to say just do it, kind of thing, of course. But like I like shops that have like new bikes out front. I'm talking about like nice weather, obviously, but like I like when they have new bikes out front. I don't need like 50 new bikes, but like, and maybe they don't have to be brand new, but like newer bikes. I don't want to see like old servicey bikes. I feel like maybe some could be out there, but like the emphasis, your eye should go to, designers always talk about where your eye goes for things, right? Like the rule of thirds for photography and all that kind of stuff. But like your eye should go to like stuff that's great, right? So I'm just thinking like some nice newer bikes or new bikes out front. I think having some cool stuff in the window as well could do the trick. I don't know what stuff, like it's kind of cool having a vintage bike because I'm biased toward that, but maybe if it's even like some cool mannequins with helmets, not cheesy ones, but it's like you have good taste. So like dress up a cool mannequin, or you can just have one of your employees like stand in the window.
I would do that to them. You know that. You know me.
I do, and you would fucking do it.
I would totally do it. I'll like stand there.
Or Isa's coming back from Alaska. She has no idea what's in store.
She's already kind of robotic. She would happily. Are you familiar with this MPV or non NCP movement on TikTok and some of the different various
I'm not on TikTok, but I haven't heard it. What is it?
I think it's a non-controllable player. It's this thing where, like in video games where you have those people in the background, they perform the same movement. They're just
I'm just thinking of breakdancing, the robot. And
apparently kids are making like thousands of dollars. Like, they'll spend hours and hours.
We're in the wrong business, Joe.
Oh, I was born at the wrong time.
I wish we had a GIF of what you just did for the folks.
All day long, I would be in.
You hear about these like 10-year-olds opening boxes for millions of dollars.
Yeah,
but I think that would be cool. And then my third thing, Joe, is a nice drinks cooler.
Yeah, that I'm excited about.
Something very nice. Like, I don't mean like expensive necessarily, but just something nice that is very inviting and prominently displayed in your shop. So when I go into your shop, like, I know you know me, and I can go help myself to tap water. But beyond that, I don't think there's like drinks for sale, right? So I think,
and it's been a glaring.
I'm not a business consultant, but I think you have lost money by not just go to Costco or wherever you go and stock up with Gatorades, waters, et cetera, and like I don't know if you need a permit or a license for that stuff, but like I think that is just a cash cow, because people come in even when they're just waiting in line. It's like, let me just grab a water. People just want to hydrate. It's a bike shop, and they've been at the trails or all those hot summer days. I digress, but those are
it's been
three top tips.
It's been a glaring miss on my part not to have one of those, and I was actually very close to having one maybe 8 years ago. Like I was ready to move one in, and then turned out the compressor was bad in it, and then I never went back. I never went back at it, and
because I don't see any downside. I mean, do you need a special permit? Can you just go buy, like, you can probably get a secondhand one on like Marketplace, right? And
I just want to
stock it up with like, put some cool like fun stuff in there. Get some like Fresca and Tab and
Orangina, just so European.
Oh, get like the Mexican Coke is big, right?
Yeah.
The Mexican Coke, get the American Coke to keep our patriots happy.
Yeah.
Get all the Euro trash shit. Like get the Euro Fanta and whatever. There's a drink called Lucasade, which is huge in Ireland. People drink it. It's kind of like something like a Gatorade, but like better. It's fizzy. Anyway, I think if you get some like, and then it's from Spain, go get like the weird stuff you drink there and just like stock it up. I think that would be a cash cow, dude.
Yeah, you know what? I am, and I'll call it the Dan McMahon Memorial Cooler. I have a picture of you bike racing. Yeah, I am. I'm going to do that. I'm going to call it the Dan McMahon Memorial
People will be like,
Cooler.
"Is he dead?" But I think that would be a good one. You don't need to go like crazy, but like keep it simple. And then like I think of like keep half of it or a third of it water, but then like load up on that other good stuff. I think I don't know. I think it would sell, man.
My sister has a like a pet store, a dog, like kind of a pet boutique. She owns she owns a pet boutique, and she started like over the last year or so, she started selling some candy at her front, like at the front counter.
For humans?
Yeah, human candies. Because she was, I don't know, there were a bunch of kids or something that were, I think she started off with drinks, and these kids were coming in and buying soda. And she soon realized that these kids were coming in and buying soda because their parents wouldn't allow them to have sugar.
There you
So they
go.
were sneakily, it was like they were coming in and pulling their money together and they were drinking pop, It was
Yeah,
like
the gateway drug.
it was. And so
Were
she's
they
like,
just school kids? So I was a teacher, as you know, for a long time, and I
yeah.
remember like the school kids. They would go to some of these places, like places that you wouldn't think of going to for like a cold soda,
Hmm.
but because it sold like shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
But the owner like had some savvy. He's like, well, I know these kids would never come in here otherwise. So the next like bodega is like 3 blocks
Yeah.
down. They've only got 10-minute break, so they can come in here. Like did that kind of thing. But that's really cool. Good for your sister.
Yeah. That was
Where is her place? What suburb?
this is the place in Brookfield. So
Oh, okay.
she's in Brookfield and she also owns another place in downtown LaGrange.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. She's quite the little entrepreneur herself.
Yeah, but I think if you put it somewhat prominently where
Mhm.
you kind of can't avoid it, like, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, I'm
I'm going to put it right at the front.
Like, I just want to be like, yeah, give me one. Especially, you can charge a fair price for it, but I assume like you make crazy margin on that because you can go to Costco or wherever you buy your stuff and just like stock up, right? Like on Gatorades and this and that.
Yeah, there was an early time in the bike shop in the history of the bike shop, like in the first year or two, especially when things were slower, where I was, you know, I was making coffee and doing some pour overs for customers. I had that kind of time,
Like
so,
a Rafa store.
Yeah, yeah. So people would come in and it was a winter. So that especially that first winter, I had zero real business, true business, but I had people coming in and hiding from the cold and, the people that were mountain biking. And I actually, some of the people that were hanging out that first winter are customers to this day. And I think partly because those first couple of years, they just kind of hung out and talked and they became friends of the shop. But yeah, we would make coffees. And I remember we were looking for like really, we were very close to pulling the trigger on a very expensive espresso machine, like handmade espresso machine out of Seattle or, somewhere in Washington, something. It was called the,
was it something rocket?
The Slayer. It was called the Slayer, and really,
Nice.
really, really cool. Made one at a time, custom made espresso machine. But I came to my senses, and bought bicycles instead.
I could see these like freezing cyclists coming in, like, Joe, pour us a coffee and tell us a story.
Oh, it was exciting. Yeah.
I think you could get some energy drinks in there, some coffee drinks. Good times. Well, that's cool. So what in your mind is like the date you have to be ready for business in 2024? Like, do you have like a time when you feel like every year that you pretty much have to be rolling and ready to go? Like, is it February? Is it March?
I think that, so that Cabdis show that we were talking about earlier, that takes place in mid-February. And, I said like, the season's right around the corner. So, by that time, it's not unusual to start getting some very early tune-ups start coming in, and maybe even people poking around and talking about new bikes and stuff. But by March, all hell can break loose. If we have in March, in Chicago, you can string together 360-degree days pretty, it's not unusual. It can happen. And if you do, we're off and running. We're off to the races. Like the season, the season can get started that weekend. Like that week you can get a little bit of a rush, and it just puts cycling in people's minds. If we have gray and cold and snow, then the season might not start until May. So I mean that's how finicky people are and the public is. And I mean, you'll always get the cyclists. So, people who ride bikes will always start thinking about bikes early and getting their bikes in for tune-ups. I'm talking about like the masses, I'm talking about the average guy. And that's why the weather's so important to us. So if we have good weather in March, our season's off and running. If we don't have good weather until May, we won't, it could be a bad year just because of that, just because we kind of lose the early spring.
We'll see what Puxatony Phil has to say on Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say sometime in March. I like to be ready. I like to be ready by that time. So,
So you basically have most of this month, November, December, January, February. So you got like about 4 months.
Yeah. We're off to a good start. Like I said,
Goes pretty fast, huh?
it goes super fast, because then you have the holidays, you have, you have snow and cold, and, fortunately it's still pretty easy to be moving around, but, you'll get those days that are just kind of, you can cancel out a whole week in Chicago just because of the weather and things are lousy and, gray and holidays and all the rest. So yeah, I mean, I would take easily a month out of that. So
I was going to say, yeah, when you break it down, you're probably looking at like 3 solid months, right?
Yeah. And we're still working. So it's like, there's still, the weekends, people are still coming in and stuff. And, hopefully you still get repairs and things going in. So it's not like it's just, that's all you're doing. You're kind of working around those things. So, yeah.
The other thing I have, and maybe you have a different take on this through all your experience, but the other thing, I'm just being selfish, thinking of what I like when I go into bike shops, even if it's not for high-end, like fancy bike stuff. But like, and I don't know if you have the space or if it's even doable, but one thing I like is, well, the principle would be kind of like having a lot of like, I don't want to sound like buzzwordy, but like empowerment. Like I want to be able to, I want to feel like when I go in, like I have a lot of power, so to speak, when it comes to like purchases and like what's available. I feel like some shops are like, you can't tell what anything costs. You don't know how much anything is going to be for service. It's kind of like this mystery meat kind of thing. And you're like, and then you almost sometimes maybe you feel intimidated. Like we talked about that idea before. Some people feel intimidated at bike shops. Like you might feel dumb asking like, how much is a new chain or, whatever. Point being is that, and I know we talked about this too, especially when I was in Colorado, but I like places that list very, very clearly on a very nice board, even if it's just handwritten in chalk, but like you obviously can't put every service, but like their top, 12 services or whatever. So the different kinds of tune-ups, I think you have something like this, correct me if I'm wrong. Different kinds of tune-ups, like a flat, a new tire. I mean, I love when that's kind of there. I feel like it puts people at ease and it makes them feel just kind of a little bit relaxed almost. Some people are just very blunt and they come in and are like, how much is this? But I think some people, like different personalities, like they like to feel that you're being very transparent as a shop owner to them, and they're not getting like fleeced. Like, we've all been to the mechanic shop. And you're like, is this going to be $1,000 or $100? Like, I don't know. It's like, so I kind of love that. I really like that idea, is like having that up there. And then the other thing I was just going to say is something where it's like I think you do this. So you list the brands that you carry, which I think is great. I like too when there's a little bit of a display or a stand, a kiosk, whatever it is, where it's like you can flip through like the current catalog for that brand. Let's say Surly or Cannondale has their yearly catalog. I don't know if they break it now down by seasons or what, but like I always kind of like that. I don't know if that would be interesting to most people, but I like having the current catalog for like those brands, and I kind of just like to flip through them. I know a lot of people now just do it online at home or on their phone or whatever, but I don't know. I kind of like to be able to like sit there and just kind of flip through some stuff and then like ask you questions like, hey Joe, like I really like this hybrid. It's pretty cool, but like I can't imagine spending $2,000 for a hybrid. Like what's better than this one? And how does it compare to this thing? And I don't know. I just kind of like having something tactile, I guess. Even if it's like a digital kind of display thing, like you go into the Trek stores, and one thing I like about what they do, I'm sure you've seen it. They do that thing where you stand in front and it takes your size. Have you seen these? So it's about the height of a door.
And you put your crotch on it, like thing that comes up your crotch, and you stand there, and it takes your height and all that.
Yeah, it's all like lasers, like digital.
Oh, this one's a laser. Well, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. If you, I forget what they call it, Trek Fit or something. If you Google it, you'll find it in a second. But no, you like stand back, and then you click a button. It says, okay, 3 seconds, and it goes 3, 2, 1, and then it takes a picture. And it gives like someone actually at a trek store once told me it's not very accurate, but I think it's a good general guide for a lot of people. And I'm not even saying you need something like that, but the point is like they had something that was kind of like independent, and I felt like I had some ownership and empowerment where I can kind of go up and like, oh yeah, this is like a good size for me. I always thought I was a large. I'm actually a medium, or vice versa. Anyway, I just kind of like some of these things. Maybe I'm just like, I like the new shiny thing, like a dog, but I kind of like some of these things. I like the list of prices. Just the more transparency, I feel like the better. And
yeah, I think I need to add, well, it's not that I am going to add more of that. And it's more so, it's also to help just some of the younger staff understand some of those things a little bit better. That's part of the new POS system too. And, just being able to update our price lists and create these service packages. People like packages, like when you go to the car wash, there's A car wash, B car wash, C car wash,
I want the undercarriage, I want the armor on the tires.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know what, it's a science, if you present people with three of them, most of the time they go with the middle one. It's like when they ask you, which wine do you want? You don't get the cheap one, but you also don't get the most expensive one. You get the one in the middle, right? And so,
behavioral economics kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it's something that people are also very comfortable with, and so I have to create these things. I have to create these. Basically, I have to create this outlandish package, which is like an overhaul and all sorts of stuff. You'll see it. If you poke around at some of the better bike shops, they usually offer this $500 tune-up. This overhaul where it's like,
oh yes,
free tape, and you get your. You get a new drivetrain, and you get
steak tartare on the side.
Yeah. You get all sorts of stuff, but it's like $500 or $600. I mean, it's like a crazy price to it. And then there's like a basic tune-up that's like, I don't know, you name it $100 or whatever. And then there's one right in the middle, and then that middle one is usually somewhere around hovering that $200 or $150 to $200 range, right? And so you're just like, wow, man, if I could to get those $200 packages, that would be fantastic. It's more than a tune-up, but not the overhaul. And some places call it the yearly, some people call it. They just have a bunch of different names. And
the Big Daddy.
Yeah, and depending on the market, and what you'll support in that place, and so. Yeah, we're looking at all that stuff, anything to kind of and create value for customers too. I mean, I've got a lot of customers that are just used to asking for the tune-up every year, but I would say maybe 10% of all the actual tune-ups that I took in this year actually went out for what the tune-up price is, because most bikes need something. They need a tire, a flat tire, a cable, grips, a saddle. Sometimes all of those things, brake pads,
Yeah,
so
I tweak my bike like once a week.
Yeah.
With something like, even if it's tiny, like,
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, very rare that it goes out just on that, the base tune-up price. So, just create these little, these little packages that kind of make people feel good about doing something nice to their bike, So.
And you'll throw in a Gatorade.
Yeah, that's right.
One thing I thought of, how what I like is you have that. It's super simple, like something we might not even notice or talk about. But you have that little thing that has the press the valve and the Schrader valve.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's great. It's nice and simple, right? Like anyone can understand it, and people are, they don't know the words Preston and Schrader, but you show them, like, oh yeah, the little thin bike.
They point. They love to point.
And then the car. I have that one, the car one.
Yeah.
That's great, right? There's nothing that's like a perfect thing. I think a similar thing that I thought about a second ago as you were talking, if you had build something similar, so you can just like toss it around, leave it on the counter or whatever, for tire wear. So you have a new tire and just like cut like a strip.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have a defective tire and you can just like cut one up. So you just cut like a few inches. It's like, all right, this is what a new tread looks like, a new tire. and then do like a very worn one, which I'm sure you can get very easily from your garbage bin or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, that's what a worn one looks like. And then like one in the middle, or maybe even like 4 gradations, but like have like a middle one. I don't know. I feel like when people come in, I don't know is that something that happens a lot? You get a lot of people like asking about their tires, or are you actually saying to people, oh, look at your tire, by the way, like this is pretty worn. It could be like bad traction. You could get flats. It could dry rot, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I just thought something like that could be like a very neat, easy, simple visual.
Yeah, you know what? It's something that that when I have the opportunity to take a tune-up in, it's something that I try to catch and that I can talk people through. I'm trying to create tools for my junior staff to kind of use and to lean on, and so that they can show the customer, because sometimes the customers with some of these younger people that are not sure, it's like they don't take their word for it. But I think if they can show them that, if they can explain to them. So yeah,
it's hard to argue, and
Yeah.
I don't mean in an angry,
Mhm.
but it's hard to debate like, oh well, that's a worn tire. There's no tread on it.
Yeah, it also helps to display the tires like on a rim, like to have a tire and say, this is what your tire would look like on your bike. And,
Oh yeah.
so
Then it's hard to go back, right? It's like,
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, you're right. I mean, having those displays, having those tools to use helps a lot. It helps both ways. You sell more, but you can also explain to the customer a little bit better. That little chain checker tool that we use, like we try to encourage the kids when they're taking in tune-ups, like, we run them through. It takes a while to be able to sell service and labor, to know what you're looking for. So we try to hammer them on it. And then it's funny because once they get really behind it, once they find something that they can really lean on, like this year we sold more chains and cassettes that, it was crazy how many chains and cassettes we sold this year, because they got it and they got behind it and they got behind measuring the tools. And, it was like, it was great, because I'd be in the back of the shop and I'd hear them, you need a chain and cassette. And the people would, they'd go for it, and I was like, wow, man, they're banging away on chains and cassettes this year. And, and it's like, it's noticeable. Like it's even noticeable in the recycling, pile and the bin, and, with all the metal, piles,
that's cool, man.
Piles of chains and cassettes.
Business is happening. That's good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it really increases the ticket price by quite a bit. If your tune-ups, let's say $100, and then you're adding, another $50 for a chain and cassette, plus some extra labor for installing all of that, plus a tire, plus a set of grips. All of a sudden, that it's not a $99 tune-up anymore. It's well over $200.
And to be fair, I mean, you're doing a good service to the customer too, because if you need a chain, getting a chain is great. Like having a new chain and a cassette, because they wear together, like that makes the riding, like your shifting is smooth and crisp. Like you're just going to enjoy the bike so much more.
Yeah. It's what we talked about, I think, in a prior show. The customer's gone through all the trouble of bringing the bike down to the bike shop, and it's not enjoyable to drag a bike out of your house and put it in a car and bring it to the bike shop. For the average person, it's a real pain in the butt.
I love what you told me last time. Like they got it in, but they couldn't get it out.
They can't get it out. Yeah, they jam it in there. And even I, it's like, even I have to go and figure out, like, how did you did you do the front wheel first? How did you do it? And, they'll twist the whole front end, and, yeah, I mean, and so like coming to that understanding of, and just like realizing, wait a second, these people have gone through a lot of trouble to bring the bike down. You're not, I try to be a nice person, so I'm not trying to just sell them everything, but, in some cases they need everything, and it's just like they need tires, and they need a chain and cassette, and they need grips, and, and they obviously like riding because they've worn all this stuff out. And so when you make them understand that, that it's going to make them, it's going to make them more comfortable, and it's going to work better. And, I've really, hammered on that. It's like, hey man, you ride a lot. You really enjoy this. This is the one thing that you obviously ride. I can tell when someone rides a bike, treat yourself, And
You can almost guarantee it, right? Like you're gonna just enjoy this bike so much more now.
Yeah, yeah, and we hear back from people all the time, where they come back, they're all go, "Oh my God, this is so great," like I'm like, "Yeah, I told you, man." I was like,
See how that works?
yeah, yeah, and they really, they like it. I mean, for some people it stings because they're coming in thinking they're going to get a tune-up for, whatever, $100, and they end up spending $250, because they needed a bunch of stuff on their bikes, but.
But if they ride that the whole year and then the year after, I mean, that's gonna pass by quickly. And you think of all the other crap people spend, Cheesecake Factory. Some people drop $100, they don't think about it. And then for the bike, they're like $100. It's like, well, yeah, dude, you're gonna be on this thing like 5-10 hours a week.
Oh yeah, they think about it as a toy. So it's like, that's always been the problem in the bike industry, is that the bike was always considered a toy for some, for a large part of the population. So
not to go off topic.
Yeah.
Because I always love talking about your shop, because I kind of live vicariously through you as a shop owner. But speaking of chains, so I think I showed you, or you saw on my Instagram, or I've talked about it, but I've gotten into waxing chains, and it's been kind of a game changer.
Yeah. Is this on your cross bike, or is it
both?
Okay.
Road and cross. So I won't go on about it, but and I won't be an evangelist, but I really like the chain waxing. And who knows what'll happen in the future, but I really can't see going back to not waxing my chain. It's just so nice, and it's just so great, and like there's no downside. And so I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And it's made my cycling like a few percent better. Which is kind of a lot, right? Like usually something gets 0.00, decimal places, but like it's made my cycling, like I might go as bold to say it's 5% better. It's just, I'm not saying like faster, although Joe.
Whoa, Danny. I had a bit of a
you froze there. I don't know if it was me or you, but you froze on my side.
Yeah, I think we had a small power outage here in the southwest suburbs.
I can't tell because you have your cabin background with all the lights on.
Yeah, I think that there was a little bit of a the lights went out, the internet went out for a second, and
there's so many lights on our screen backgrounds for the Google Hangouts that I'm like, I can see the lights going out. Everything okay? Everything okay now?
I believe so. I mean, I hope that first part of the show, it looks like I restarted the recording, and it said podcast number 2. So I'm hoping that the first half of the show is saved. Otherwise,
Oh no!
And we can move. We'll continue forward and pretend like, I hope, fingers crossed, that we have a first part of this podcast, and if not, then we're starting a new one right now.
Oh Jesus Christ!
And people missed out on a really good.
It's going to be incredibly short then.
Yes.
Anyway, I was just talking about how I started waxing my chain, which I realize sounds like kind of an elitist thing, but
no, you know what? It sounds. I don't think that we've ever had. I don't have a problem with people waxing their chains, or it's just like it takes a lot of effort, like time and effort for someone to do that. Mm-hmm.
At first, but once you do it once. Mm-hmm. Then you're golden. So it depends on how you do it, and I won't go into all the.
So what's this? Let's go into it a little bit. What's this? Are you using a particular system? Is this Silca or one of those?
Yep.
Who is this? It's Silca, right? I know you like the Silca brand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Silca. I mean, honestly, they're the only one I really know. I'm sure there's others, of course, but it's only one I know. They're big in the U.S. and they're big in cycling and have been for a long time. And now they got that guy, I think Josh, he runs it. He used to be at SRAM, but he's into all kinds of interesting stuff. So I use this Silca. I think it's called the Hot Wax Super Silca Hot Wax Melt, whatever it's called. But it's like in this like decent size like plastic bag. It looks like a sous vide bag. Like you can like drop it into a boiling pot of water.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I did it the first time with my road bike. But the other way to do it, which is the more quote like pro way to do it, if you will, is you dedicate an Instapot to waxing your chain.
Really?
Yeah, so
Like,
that's what I've done.
you have a dedicated Instapot just for your bike chain?
Yeah, so I posted it on my Instagram last week, and actually Silka reposted it on their handle,
Huh.
their Instagram. But yeah, Sarah let me do it. So
Okay.
we had one, and I think you can get them now for like $50. So
Uh-huh.
it's not nothing, but it's not too big an investment. And those like metal pots that slip into the Instapot,
Yeah, yeah.
those themselves only cost like a few bucks.
Okay.
So but I'm actually just dedicating it. The reality is, I think for like a lot of people, we don't really use our Instapot that much.
Really?
So it's kind of like sitting in our pantry. So anyway, bottom line is, you pour the contents of the bag right into the Instapot. You heat it up on crock pot mode. So like low temp. You don't want it to get too hot because it could actually catch fire. So you keep it under 200 degrees. And I have a little thermometer that we use for cooking to monitor that. But bottom line is, it's very, very easy. The first part, it takes a little bit because you have to watch the video. You got to kind of see the bells and whistles and the do's and don'ts rather, and that sort of thing. But you basically melt the wax.
Mm-hmm.
It gets totally liquid form, and then you take your chain off your bike. You pop it off, and I just use like a coat hanger, but you can use a spoke, an old spoke. I actually didn't have an old spoke, which I was kind of embarrassed about. I'm like, as a cyclist, I should have old toe straps and old spokes lying around.
I'll give you a big pile of them, Danny. I got them.
I was going to say,
been collecting all that stuff the last week.
I'll take a few. But basically, you just use that to catch the chain, so it's kind of tidy, so it's not like all over it.
Do you wash your chain first? Do you have to clean and wash it and like prep it before you dip it?
Yeah. So you should wash it as best you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
One method that I really love is I use an old pickle jar.
Mm-hmm.
Just use any old glass jar. And pickle jar is kind of perfect size, I think. But you basically pour in degreaser, just like a half inch or an inch, a couple fingers, and then you put in the chain, put the lid on, and then just like shake it, agitate it. You'll see the degreaser get black very fast, even if you have a pretty clean chain, just because there's so much stuff in the chain that you don't see. You rinse and repeat 3 times, and maybe more if you need it, but you'll still get more dirt coming out. Finally, after like 3 times, then you kind of I just like rinse it with some water, and then you like dry it as best you can. So I actually dried it very vigorously with some use those special towels. What are they called? The microfiber towels. You get like big bags of them, but use those, not like a regular towel or a paper towel, because like everything gets in the chain otherwise. But use the microfiber towel, and then I use the hair dryer. And I went over it with hair dryer, so as clean as I could possibly get it. Then you drop it in, and then you it's already heated, the wax, of course. So you don't have to have it in there very long, actually. So I forget how long. I think I kept it in there like 10 minutes, and then you kind of keep agitating it periodically, move it around, kind of as if you were like stirring pasta or something, I guess. And then you just like take it out, you let it drip a little bit to get most of the wax off. There's kind of like some details about when to pull it out and that sort of thing, which you can see on the video they have. But it's pretty straightforward, really. You take it out and then you like hang it, and then it cools off and you're basically done. So then you take the chain off the spoke, and it's going to be kind of like hard because it's wax like a candle. So I wrap it around our railing in the back, on the back deck, and I just do kind of like back and forth to loosen up the chain and like the big chunks of wax come off. But it's basically ready to go. You put it back on the chain. I have a SRAM chain, so I just use a new power link. I don't like to reuse those. You're not supposed to, I guess. So clip it back on and you're good to go. And then, but anyway, the point is it's really nice. And then you just keep that Instapot, you just unplug it, let it cool, cover it, put it back where you had it. I keep it in a little cabinet, and
and it's just hard. It just sits in there, and then when you need it,
Yeah,
Hmm.
then you just heat it up and it heats up like in 5 minutes.
How often do you wax?
So it's a good question.
Yeah.
So I think that I just waxed my cross chain, my cyclocross chain a second time. It kind of depends a little bit on conditions, but I think if I'm not mistaken, the going uh it's under 1,000. It's under 1,000 miles. I want to say it's like around 600 to 800 miles,
Hmm.
kind of depending on some conditions. Like obviously, cyclocross can get a little gnarly. The one slight caveat I would say is, even though I said there's really no downside, um, it's admittedly not great for wet, hardcore, like muddy conditions
Mm-hmm.
on the regular. But you can get away with it if you're not doing it a lot and you also wipe your chain down after an event. So that's what I've been doing. I've had no issues. But it's like let's say 600 to 800 miles. They sell a separate product. It's like a lube. It looks like a creamy kind of lube. And that you can drip onto the roller bearings on the chain. And then you kind of massage it in with your fingers. That's like a good in between waxing kind of treatment, which prolongs it. So if you find your chain like losing a little bit of the wax, or it's getting maybe a little raspy or something like that, you can kind of add that without having to do a full waxing. But again, the waxing, once you have it all set up, it takes 15 minutes,
And
20
then
minutes.
the standard degreaser will clean the old wax off and then allow you to re-wax. Is that what kind of what you do?
No,
Or you
that's the beauty. You just take it off and dump it in.
really
Yep.
even with the dirt and stuff on there?
Because the way the wax works,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know all the science behind it. Josh is like a total science guy.
Mm-hmm.
You watch the video and this articles can explain it, but it doesn't allow that dirt in. Is the way it works. It can't really penetrate. So the guidance is just take the wax chain off as long as it's been done properly the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and then just drop it in, and then it's just going to wax again. And that's the beauty of it. So that's why it only takes like 15, 20 minutes.
So like if you're looking at your chain, let's say after you've ridden it 10 times, does it look dirty or does it stay pretty clean?
It stays clean.
It does.
That's the thing.
Really?
Yeah.
It does, huh?
I'm
Wow.
looking at it right now. It stays clean. The cassette is clean. So there's no grease. There's no lube. It's so I use that term carefully, not loosely. It's kind of a game changer. Like, it is so quiet. That's the first thing you notice. And I think I told you,
Really?
I'm very like.
See, this is
like
this is a
quiet
kind of
bike.
silly thing that I'd love to do at the bike shop and just charge ridiculous amount of money for.
Well, Silca also sells pre-wax chains.
Really?
So I just watched a video with Kerry Warner, who's a pretty top high level gravel rider, former cross rider. I think he gave up cross, but anyway, he was talking in his video, just kind of randomly started saying, "Oh, and I have my wax chain. I'll put that on for the race tomorrow." I'm like, "Oh, he's doing it too." So yeah, so you can order a wax chain. They have SRAM, they have Shimano, and they just send it to you, and you could put it right on your bike. So people will take that new chain and just bring it to like a race, and they just put it right on. So if they're traveling, they don't have to like buy it, or do the waxing.
Huh.
But it's very, very quiet. It's insanely quiet. It is super efficient. And it's said to be very, very fast compared to like a regular chain. But I think maybe the biggest thing for a lot of people, because a lot of us aren't racers and stuff, is that it lasts. Like, it makes your chain last like forever. Like, you don't have to replace your chain nearly as much as you normally do. And Josh goes into all the reasons why, and he talks about all the details. But if you go read the comments on even just like YouTube and like on the website, like the comments, people are just converts, man. They're just like, "Oh, I wish I knew about this a long time ago." And I do too. But it's very nice.
That's something that's always been around the bike shop. The chain waxing has always just, from as long as I've been hanging around bike shops, there's always been a guy, a handful of people that, and it's gone through phases of being a really popular thing to do to being almost non-existent. And now it's, like recently I've started to hear a little bit more about it, about chain waxing again. And I think a lot of it has to do with all these new people that are riding bikes. Like, they're just like finding all these things that were kind of cool, were nichey, that not a lot of people did, but now it's new to them. It's like it's new to a whole new generation of people and a whole new group of riders. And it's kind of interesting that it's gaining popularity again, or that people are starting to do it actively. Like now I know somebody who's doing it again, right? I know
It is.
like you of all people. And so it's like,
Yeah.
about, I would say maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was something else that kind of gained popularity. I don't know if it was a national thing, but certainly locally, in the Chicagoland area, there was something called Chain L, which is like Chanel, like,
Right,
but it was
right.
Chain L, and it was it's kind of a lube thing, it was like like a lube, and you would heat it and put, like warm it up, and it was kind of thick, and you put your chain in it, and like people were doing this in bike shops in the
Interesting. It's
Chicagoland
kind of like a lube version of
area.
waxing almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and you get fed, stuff through the algorithm and all that. Like I know GCN has done a bunch of videos. A lot of the biggies have done videos on waxing at this point, but I don't know if I saw it on my Instagram feeds or whatever. But I think maybe Silka gets a little bit of credit for this too, because I think maybe they just made it kind of very practical and understandable. Like took some of the mystery out of it. It's not terribly expensive. I think the bag was like $30 or $40 or something, which you can reuse it like many, many times, that wax. So you're not buying like a new bag each time or anything like that. So it's just sitting there in the crock pot. I'll fire it up when I want to wax again. Right now, I'm doing like, I think this one I did like 500-600 miles. But again, that's like cyclocross miles. So riding in the park, riding in the sand, riding in the mud, riding in the dirt. So after a wet ride, like this morning, I went out for a ride, came home. It had been raining. And I just took I keep a rag down, where I park my bike, and I just wiped the chain. You don't have to go crazy. You just kind of wipe it, make sure it stays pretty dry, because it doesn't like the wet. It can rust your chain if you're not careful.
Okay.
Which is, again, for some people like commuters who commute year round, like maybe this isn't the best way to go. Maybe you do want a wet lube or whatever. But I think for my purposes, when I can more or less decide when I want to ride outside, like I have the option to ride inside. Anyway, it's great. I love it. And so you
wipe the chain down. You get home, you wipe the chain down. Do you do that extra step? Do you have that little bottle of like the lube, that in between lube, or you don't do any of that stuff?
I don't for that purpose. I will use it after some time. Let's say, I think what happened this time. So, I was somewhere between 500 and 600 miles, that's where Strava is really handy. It just records all your rides for that particular bike. And I was able to indicate in my Strava gear shed, as they call it, I think, when I put the wax on the chain. So then I'm able to clock all the miles. Anyway, I think I was between 500 and 600 miles on one waxing. And then I think maybe 250, like roughly halfway through, I just, I could feel it maybe not quite as quiet, maybe not quite as smooth, still like quiet and smooth compared to other chains that I've written, but like I could tell it wasn't like that brand new wax chain. And then I put that on. And if you apply it like the way you're supposed to, like you shake the hell out of it, put it on the top of the chain, and then on the bottom of the chain, how you apply it to the roller bearings, top and bottom, and then massage it in with your fingers. So, it takes a little bit to do that. But once you do, you're kind of like, I forgot what it does, but it basically almost like renews the wax or whatever's happening in the process. But no, that's what I'll do if I notice like it's getting a little bit like, okay, I think I need to lube it up a little bit.
You see a little bit of surface rust or something like that. A little
orange. Something like that. So, but the way he talks about it is he has the chain measurer and stuff, and he's going on like, what did he say? 10,000 miles on one chain?
No way. Really?
Yeah. Wow. Seriously, it's kind of crazy. But the main thing is like, I hated, first of all, I love a quiet chain. I love an efficient chain. I love a quiet bike, and I hate a loud cassette and clickety clack. but I hate the mess. I mean, who really likes it, right? So I hate going through so many rags, wiping down my chain, relubing the chain. Chicago weather, of course, is just gnarly. You come back from those wet rides, your bike is destroyed, your chain, your whole drivetrain's like destroyed. It takes. I don't mind washing my bike, but I don't want to wash it 3 times a week. You know, it's insane. So the fact that I don't have to do that now is, it's really, really nice.
I mean, yeah.
It's really good stuff. He has a couple of videos on YouTube for that waxing in particular. But yeah, once you kind of the first like learning about it and then just doing it for that person definitely takes a little time, but it's not very expensive. And then once you do it once, you're golden. Like you're set. I just bought like an extra stash of those like power links for my SRAM chain.
Well, I'm all in favor of bringing back all of these old rituals, all these.
It reminds me of embrocation.
Yeah. Yeah.
The old days they would rub Vaseline and all this stuff and whatever the hell else says. But now it's like, a lot of cyclocross riders, they use embrocation. It just kind of reminds me, it's one of those like weird, mysterious kinds of things. Like, you wax your chain? Like, what?
Yep.
What is that?
Yeah, like tying and soldering spokes and like
Drillium, remember Drillium? The Eddie Merckx drilling holes in his handlebar.
Yeah. Well, I'm in favor of bringing back all of that stuff.
What could go wrong?
Start drilling out, some access systems and stuff like that.
So my next thing is 2 questions for you. So one, I was going to ask you. Well, I'll save that for a second. But I want to buy a chain. What do you call them? Measure, like the wear and tear thing.
Yeah.
Do you have one that you really love that you would highly recommend? Because I'll buy one.
I mean, the one that we use for everyday use is the Park one. There's a little blue one, with like that one seems, I don't know, that one is kind of our go-to.
Okay.
But there's a couple of other ones. I think we have another one floating around the shop, which is more of like a, there's no moving parts to it. You just put it on the chain and kind of fit it in there. It's got a little gauge,
Yeah.
Just tell you 75% or 100%. I think they all do the job, but the one that we use day to day is the Park one.
Okay,
So,
maybe I'll look at the Park one. I have a bunch of Park stuff, so I'm gonna look at that. So there's a video where he does it, and he just shows you like he has no wear on his chain. He's just been waxing. He has an old like beautiful like Eddie Merckx road bike.
and what kind of tool is he using? Is it just a static one that you like a little stick that you stick in there?
I think it's the static one where it just like falls in. But
Yep.
if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to double check. One byproduct that I just noticed this week because I bought a new backup cassette.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have the SRAM Rival Explorer group,
Mm-hmm.
which has that one buy up front and then a big old cassette and back for the huge range, like 44 or whatever it is. So I bought a second cassette for my race wheels so that I didn't have to swap the cassette each time. And then I can also use that extra cassette on my Zwift hub. Because the Zwift hub comes with like a regular road cassette.
Mm-hmm.
My point is that we always say the chain ages with the cassette, right? Well, because this chain isn't really aging,
Mm-hmm.
I put it on. I put the cassette on the race wheels, and then I went out for a test ride, and just shifted perfectly. Like, couldn't tell any difference at all. Whereas I think back in the day, I would have to do some micro adjusting and some moving around because it'd be a little bit off.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I could tell, that's like a nice byproduct too, is that the chain is wearing like almost not at all or just like very, very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So even putting it on a new cassette,
you're not having that incompatibility issue, or certainly not going to have it anytime soon. That way. Yeah. I mean, you get, there's a certain amount of leeway you have with, mixing an older chain with a older, with a new cassette. That's part of what your chain tool will allow you to measure, because like once you get to that 0.75 mark on those chain stretchers, that's kind of the change it now, or for over, if you let it go past this point, you're not going to, you're going to marry that cassette to the gotcha. Chain, so that's kind of the whole purpose of checking that chain every once in a while. Because once you get past a certain point, then they're married, then
gotcha.
you can't do one without the other. But as long as your chain is good, you can go back and forth all you want, So
it's been a good learning curve for me as I try to teach myself some of the stuff.
No,
over
that's
the winter.
cool. Yeah, I mean that's that's you're getting past bicycle 101.
And I jumped into the niche world of waxing. But yeah, like next time we're hanging out, if I have my bike, I'll show you. Like it just
Yeah,
it
you know what? I'm
looks
curious.
very clean, and it looks very clean and super quiet, and just shifts great. And
it's one of those. You know what? You gave me a good idea for a goofy thing to put in my new display cases. Like I'll put pre-waxed chains. That'll be. I might not sell one, but it'll be there. It's like I can package it nicely in a little jar or something.
It's just so nice because I have like 4 or 5 or 6 different kinds of lubes that I've collected over the past couple of years. You name it, I probably have it. Like wet, dry, different brands. And now I just open my little storage closet and I just see them, and I'm like, I haven't touched them in a couple of months. Like it's just so nice. Like I'll keep them in case I need them, but you actually can't put lube on the wax chains. Like that's like the last thing you want to do.
You don't want to mix that stuff. So
so I don't know. It's very nice. Like I'm not using any rags, and I just use one to like wash it off a bit, but it doesn't really get dirty. So
or you're gonna have to find a reason to use all those lubes. You walk around the house and like your hinges and go down to the car.
Just lube everything I see.
Yeah, just all.
I'll be like Peter Griffin, when he gets like a new thing, he just uses it like a kid until it's worn out.
Yeah, it just goes.
Well, we'll see, man.
Cool, man. Well, we didn't touch on any of the bike. There's not a lot of bike racing stuff going on right now. This is kind of a slow time. I did catch a little bit of that. Did you see the Saitama criterium? Did you see any of that stuff?
I saw some funny little clips online.
There was so it's like in Japan, this, I think it's like, the guys seem to be there for 2 or 3 days. Like they do all sorts of events and they're dancing.
Sumo wrestlers. They get a sword. They eat sushi. Like they do like the most like, I think it's fun. It's like the Tour de France organizes it.
Yeah.
It's like it's a way to promote the race and all their other races, since they own so many now, over there. And they bring like the marquee, the top of the top. So it's like Vanderpool was there and Sagan was there, and like they have them race like these like crits and
time trial. They do a time trial.
And they go, they kind of have like a quote sprint, and the guy who never would normally win a sprint beats these like crazy sprinters. It's like a whole like, it's like kayfabe, like in wrestling. It's like everyone knows it's fake, but they play along with it.
Yeah, because it's
at least I hope the locals realize it's fake.
The final 3 going in was Sagan, it was Pogacar, and it
like
was Sepp Kuss. Those were the 3. They were winding up for the sprint, and then they dropped Sagan, and then it was Pogacar and Kuss, and Pogacar took off. But they seemed like they were having a good time. And I mean, if they were offering me a free vacation and probably fly me out to Japan where they love me, and I can go one of those cool cat cafes and stuff, I would go out there too.
Well, I'm sure those riders are getting some really nice cash in their bank accounts.
Yeah, they're probably getting a little something, I'm sure. Yeah.
Pretty nice. Just those like show up fees and stuff. But I remember when I worked at bicycling and maybe a couple other places, but I remember like, we had always had a Getty Images account. And I remember just like going into Getty and like just seeing what I always had like a certain tab like that how my search criteria said, so I could just like click it and it would pull it up like most recent cycling, whatever. But I always remember like whenever they went to Japan for those end of year things, it was, it'd be like, there's some really funny ones like Chris Froome, he's like what, 5% body fat, and he's like literally with like 2 sumo wrestlers. And they're in their traditional garb, and there's like really, really funny stuff. And so I'd pull like some pictures, and those are always fun. But yeah, it's that's the silly season, right? They call it. silly season. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah, the racing's winding down. Obviously, cyclocross is happening. So it's really ramping up now. I think Van der Poel and Wout van Aert announced they're going to come back for. They haven't race cross yet, so they're coming back like kind of mid-season. So like right when the Christmas period begins, the Kirsta period, which is the Christmas week, where they race pretty much every day from Christmas to New Year's. There's a cyclocross race, and it's kind of like what a lot of Belgians do around the holidays. Is like instead of sitting around the fire, they just go out to a cross race and like get drunk. But the two big riders, so they're coming back. But there's been great racing going on with these like everyone else who's like below them, let's just say. So there's been some really good racing. They had the European Championships last weekend, which was amazing. That was in France, and that was really cool. They had the Pan Ams here in Missoula this past weekend. The Pan Am champs were really good. So yeah, the cross season's like totally,
it's underway, but is this so? These big names, Van der Poel and Wout, they're not racing. Obviously, they don't. They need a little time off between the road season and full fledged cyclocross season. So that's why they're not as present these days. And they're it, right? I mean, these guys are the big names on the road, and they're also the big names in cyclocross. I mean,
yeah, I think for the most
right now, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I think that's fair because as you said, and I know we've talked about before, like I think they've both experimented with their seasons and quote off seasons and what have you. But yeah, I think it's pretty clear that I don't know if they're like texting each other, but I think it's kind of clear like, okay, if I'm not racing, maybe you shouldn't race. I'm just making that up. That may be true. It may not be true, but yeah, they're clearly taking some time off, which their bodies just need to stop racing, right?
Yeah.
Need to rebuild, and so they're coming back right before Christmas. But yeah, like I think clearly Van der Poel and Wout are, I think, for sure the top two still, but it's maybe going to be changing up sooner than maybe people realize. I mean, you have Tom Pidcock, who was world champ. He won the world champs when they weren't there. He still deserved it, of course, but it's going to be interesting to see. So hopefully he'll be in the mix. And then there's just a couple riders. We have Thibaut Nice coming up. He's looking really amazing. And then you just have some great riders like Elie Iserbyt and Cam Mason, this Scottish guy. He took second in the Euro Championships in a very, very big podium ride. He's a really interesting guy to watch. But yeah, so I love it. So it's so fun. But yeah, when those guys come back, then it's like the real deal for sure. And then it's just lots of racing until World Champs, which is in February, which seems like so far away, but I know it's going to come up like super quick.
And then they'll take another little break, and then they're into classic seasons. Wow, man, those guys are intense.
Yeah, they'll take some kind of break. I mean, who knows? Sometimes what they do is they'll keep their form up. They'll do like a double peak or a triple peak. So they won't even taper. They might go into like Het Nieuwsblad or whatever it's called these days, and like Kuurne Brussels Kuurne and like all these early season races, and then take a little break after that until like the big ones like Flanders and all that.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so like the other thing I was just going to say is that the US season is we got 3 races left in the Shy Cross Cup. So I'll be coming down not this weekend. We're going to Wheeling, but then the weekend after we're going to the Quarry.
That's Lamont
Down Illinois. By you. And then we have a break for Thanksgiving, and then we have the last race, which doubles as the Illinois State Champs at Mount Charles Harbor, early December. So that's gonna be super fun. So I got 3 races left, but then we have Cross Nats down in Louisville again. And you know what? I was gonna go to spectate, but I have a work trip, so I'll be in New York City by 2 days. I'm gonna miss it. So I wanted to truck down there and kidnap you and throw you in the car with me, and go down for like 2 nights to hang out in Louisville and like drink a little whiskey and watch some cyclocross. But I'm gonna have to miss it for this work trip. And the work trip will be really good too. But anyway, so that'll be the close, and then the top riders will go on to Europe, and they begin their whole Euro campaign leading up to Worlds. And then anyone who's maybe not top tier, so that's going to be the end of their season. And then we have like not even a month until like Tour Down Under.
Man, it is flying, man. I mean,
there's no off season.
There is really no off season. I mean, it's going. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, we're a week away from. We've got 2 weeks, 3 weeks till Thanksgiving. What is it?
Yeah, it's coming up fast. Was it 3 weeks? And then
Black Friday,
Tour Down Under, and then
and then Christmas.
And then Joe's shop opens.
No, stop.
You better get working. You better get cracking, boy.
Slow down,
doing these damn podcasts. You better get cracking.
Slow down. All right. Well, speaking of cracking, we got to crack, and it's been fun, Danny. See,
this is great,
easy peasy,
and easy peasy. And I hope you can salvage the first half.
I hope so. Yeah. If not, people get a 35-minute show. And,
oh, geez, yeah.
You're gonna have to wait for us.
We had a power outage in
wait
case
till next week
didn't come through, but hopefully you can salvage our amazing convo. And thanks for listening to everyone. Please reach out, and
we'll talk to you soon, Danny.
All right, Joe.
Bye.
Take it easy.